Okay, here's the 71 BMW R60/5. Bought this 3 years ago and tore it all down. Had all kinds of ambition, but lost my gumption and got in a little over my head, maybe two. And solicited the help of Charlie Johnson here in the Twin Cities, resident airhead specialist. He and his brother JB got this stuff together on this thing, so he put it together for me, did a few mods. It's pretty much all original, except one major difference. So here's what we did to it: total frame off restoration. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Harley. Total frame off restoration, powder coated the frame, painted tank and fenders and light bucket. I should say Charlie Johnson. Charlie did most of this. He's bead blasted the hubs and the brake, re-spoked the wheels. We rebuilt the front forks, new gaiters, new springs, seals and everything in the front forks, new rubber, new cable everywhere. JB did a great job of pinstriping, and I don't think BMW factory would be any better. It's just exactly replicating the BMW factory. New mirrors, kind of did a once over on the Speedo, cleaned up and lubed everything in there. New seat, new shocks, bead blasted the whole engine, went over the transmission, went over the final drive, went through everything, made sure everything was good. New exhaust, headers all the way back to original. JB did a great job of polishing the turn signals up. I think we bead blasted the brake pedal there, I'm not sure. New rubber obviously everywhere, new seals, everything in the final drive and the drive shaft. New battery. But the biggest thing you may have noticed, the cylinder and the carburetor doesn't seem to look like a slash or an R60, and that is because we, again, Charlie, in his brilliance here, we've got an R80. This is a late 70s, early 80s vintage, like off a /7 R80. He had to mill down the base of the cylinder just a little bit so it fits into the crankcase, and now it is an 80. It's a 800cc, and the big difference here is we get the diaphragm carb instead of the slide carbs that the 60 and the 50 came with originally. The R75 came with these carbs, so we're basically an R75 plus 50 more cc's. Ceramic coating on the tank, the baked on version on that. New grips, new switches, bezels painted and everything. So big question is, how does it run? About a half choke, maybe 3/4. That's how it runs. Runs great. Actually idles good. Upgraded the alternator to a 300 watt, so the battery actually will keep up with the charge on the alternator, will keep up, generator, keep up with the charging of the battery, which was not true with these things originally. So that's about it. Yeah, pretty much frame off restoration, did everything we needed to on this bike. It's like a brand new 71 BMW. Take it for a ride. This motorcycle ran okay when I bought it. It had been sitting for several years. I'm not exactly sure how many, but I'm thinking it's probably upwards of 10 years. And it ran okay, but wow, does it run good now. It's Charlie sold me on this 800 conversion, and the major advantage is not the 200 cc's additional displacement, it's the carburetors. The old slide carburetors that are on the 50 and 60, the 500 and 600 version of these /5s, were the slide carbs on those two models limited the idle capability, limited the horsepower. It just was an okay running bike, but these diaphragm carbs on the R75 for the /5s just made so much better running bike out of it. So with the R80 cylinders, we can put the newer carbs. They're still old in today's standards. Obviously, a carburetor of any kind is old school, but this is still a 70s vintage carburetor on here, but it's the carburetor that comes on the R75 that I can now enjoy on the what was an R60, and I'll still call it an R60, but it's an 800cc engine. It's an R80 for all practical purposes. The data plate and the engine placards still say R60, and I just want to leave it original. But yeah, she runs like a top. Idle's awesome, smooth. Charlie said I'm almost doubling the horsepower. I think I went from like 22 horsepower to 39 horsepower or something like that. I'll have to look that up. Maybe put that on the screen, but yeah, it's just a really nice /5 now. Mint, frame off, full restoration. It's not probably museum quality, or I don't know if it would win any awards or anything. It's not 100% pure perfect, but it's darn close. And there isn't really much else. We didn't go through the bottom of the engine just because there was no reason to. It's got 33,000 miles on it, and we don't have slinger rings on the /5 like the /2 engine does, so that engine needs to be taken down and completely overhauled at 50,000 miles. And if you don't do that, you'll seize the engine. I have a /2, so that's why I know that. That's the one my sidecars on. You may have been watching my turn signal going for the last however long, and I always forget to turn them off. Every bike I ride has turn signals on a different end of the, I think the /2 is over here too, but my newer bikes are on the left side. I don't know, I just, first couple times out in the spring, I often, on the old vintage ones here, I forget to turn the turn signals off. Didn't have self-canceling back in the day. It's a 4-speed transmission on the /5s. Probably could have used another gear, but it does okay. Back in the day, they didn't have 5 or 6 speed trannies. So there's 60 miles an hour, 55 in 3rd gear. Just purrs along nice. I'm really just trying to put another heat cycle on this thing to seat the rings. Kind of have to take it a little bit easy for 3 or 4 heat cycles. Don't want to wind her up too much, but for under 5,500 or so. Yeah, she just gets up and goes nice. I'm really happy with this thing. It was not a inexpensive mod. I knew it was not going to be, but it was. I really have kind of priced myself out of the market with this bike. I have more into it now than I could probably get for it, but no biggie, I'm keeping it. I am so glad that he talked me into this mod because this thing runs great. It actually has some good acceleration to it. My Slash 2 with the sidecar is an absolute dog. It's just it's gutless, but I don't ride either of these two bikes for speed. I got my double R if I want to really go fast, but my GS is my daily rider that is fast enough. These are for just local farting around town a little bit, but it's nice to have a little bit of power to get to a red light or pass somebody or quiet. Listen to that idle. Barely hear it. Man, it's smooth. I just don't remember this thing being that smooth. It's possible that I'm so used to my Slash 2, having not ridden this for a couple of years, that Slash 2 is not smooth, the tranny's not smooth, the engine's not smooth, doesn't accelerate very well. This thing just motors up as you twist the throttle. It's like motorcycle shit. Bike is comfortable too. I would not hesitate to get out on a long trip with this thing. I don't have hours on the seat, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but the seat's comfortable. It's a brand new seat. It's firm but comfortable. Riding position's comfortable. You could easily throw down a couple hundred miles on this thing. I think the Slash 5, the BMW really kind of, as far as the old vintage airheads, they kind of really hit a sweet spot here. The Slash 2 is an awesome bike. I love that bike. It's cool, it's old, and I just love the retro old stuff. This is only 3 years newer than my Slash 2, 71. My Slash 2 is a 68. But the Slash 5, you get a 12-volt electrical system, a little bigger tank. They make a really big tank. I forget what they call that one, but the real extra large tank. Again, with the newer style carburetors, the diaphragm carburetors, you just get a much better riding motorcycle. Smoother running engine. So I'd have to say it's the R75 in its original. There are 3 iterations of a Slash 5, the 50, 60, and the 75. The 75 is the one to get. I kind of didn't know as much about these. Not that I know much about them now, but I knew even less when I bought this. I just knew I wanted the style of the Slash 5. I love the speedometer built into the headlight. That's pretty much what makes the bike for me. That is the coolest setup there. Which my Slash 2 has that too, but when you get into the 70s, you didn't see that much anymore. The Slash 6, which started in 74, this bike was only a run of 3 years, 4 years, 70, 71, 72, 73. the slash 6s put a dual, attack and a speedometer, just a separate behind the headlight. It's not as cool. So yeah, if a guy ever wanted one of these, an R75's the ticket. They go for way more money, and this is why, because they run so much better. It's just a better bike. It isn't. I also thought it was the displacement. I thought, okay, an R60 or an R75, it's 150 cc's. How much difference could there be? But actually, it's huge because, again, the carburetors. If I got another slash 5, there'd be no question about it. It would be an R75. I don't care if it's a barn find, a piece of junk that's rusted out and hasn't ran for 1,000 years, whatever. An R75's the ticket. I don't want to downplay the value or the enjoyment a guy would get out of a 50 or a 60, because it's the same styling of bike. They just don't run as well. But I'm not saying they run poorly. I'm just trying to give you a comparison here as a first time guy on the effectively an R75. It's an 80, but it's really irrelevant. It's huge. The difference is huge. That's all I can say. Again, I kind of started out saying when Charlie talked me into doing the mod, I was hesitant because it is a lot of money, but he talked me into it, and up until yesterday when I rode this thing home from his shop, I was whoops, my bad. Thought I had neutral there. Let the clutch out. Yeah, the whole time for basically the 2 years or a year and a half, whenever we did the engine, a year and a half ago, I guess, I've been just kind of grimacing at what the ticket price was for it. But I gotta say, no regrets. I'm glad I did it. Again, I have too much money wrapped up in this thing, but it is what it is. And I have a great running slash 5 now. Chilly. Where's the switch for the heated grips? Let's go. I got cruise control. There's a little, there it is right there, little friction lock for the throttle, and anti-lock brakes, because they just don't work that good. You'd never lock the brakes up on these things. You'd have to, I mean, they work decent, but you'd have to squeeze, so they just don't lock up. You'd have to squeeze the thing so hard or stomp down on the foot lever so darn hard to get it to skid. See? You gotta squeeze pretty hard when you're braking that hard. Yeah, we painted the bezels or whatever you call it, new set screw there, new switches, new wiring all through the, forgot to mention that, all new cables. I briefly mentioned the upgraded generator. These things were notorious for, you'd take it out and run it for an hour or two and have a nice ride on the thing. You come home, even when the bike was new, back in the 70s when people would buy these things, you'd go out the next day or 2 days later and the battery would be dead. You couldn't get it started. The battery just never got a decent charge out of the, especially with the headlight running. The wattage output of the generator just wasn't enough to keep up, especially if you did a couple 3 starts getting on and off the bike a few times. You're actually losing ground on the battery. You never recoup. So we put I believe a 300 watt, again I'll look that up, Charlie sold me on that. I'm glad we did that too. because yeah, back in the day you had to just keep this thing on a tender or a charger. I don't know if they had tenders back in the 70s, but you had to just keep it on a charger. Every time you park the bike, you just hook up the charger, because it would be dead if you didn't. You got electric start on a bike, you want to use it. The Slash 2 doesn't have electric start. It's fun to start with the kicker, but if you got electric start, you should use it. You should be able to use it. Of course, that new generator came with a new diode board. So electrically, this thing's pretty much all been gone through, brand new, like I said, wiring harness and everything. So yeah, I got like a brand new 1970s vintage bike. It's pretty cool. Well, thanks for watching. Almost home, so that wraps up the overview of the restoration on my 71 BMW R60 /5 converted to an R80. Still calling it an R60, but with a notation. Thanks for your interest. See you next time.